When an avoidant is secretly into you, one of the loudest signs is not a grand confession or constant texting. It's orbiting. They circle you without fully landing. They keep a thread of connection alive without stepping into the risk of commitment. And to you, this can feel confusing because it's not nothing. It's not clean either. It's this strange between where they're present just enough to be felt, but distant enough to avoid responsibility. Orbiting is what happens when their desire is real, but their fear is louder. An avoidant can be deeply attracted to you, emotionally intrigued by you, and even attached to you, while still struggling to come close in a direct way. Because direct closeness triggers exposure. Exposure triggers vulnerability. Vulnerability triggers the old alarm. If I get too close, I'll lose control. So they manage the connection through proximity that doesn't demand too much. They watch. They check. They hover. They accidentally appear. They stay near the doorway of intimacy so they can feel you without being fully seen. This is why they'll often keep tabs on you, even when they're not speaking to you consistently. They may view your stories fast, like your posts. React to something small. Keep showing up in the same digital spaces. They might send a message that looks casual, almost pointless. Hey. Lol. That reminded me of you. And then disappear again. The goal isn't deep conversation yet. The goal is to keep the bond from dying. Because for an avoidant, losing full access is terrifying, but giving full access is also terrifying. Orbiting is their compromise. And ladies and gentlemen, orbiting is not random. It's a nervous system strategy. When they feel drawn to you, they want connection. But they also fear the consequences of connection. Being expected to show up, being asked to communicate, being required to be consistent. So they take connection in small sips. A little contact, then retreat. A little presence, then distance. It's like they touch the warmth and then pull their hand back because they're scared of how much they want it. That's why orbiting can look like this. They're more present when you're less available. If you stop reaching, they suddenly appear. If you pull your attention back, they start hovering. If you post something that suggests you're thriving, they get more active, because your independence reduces the pressure they fear, but it also increases the loss they fear. You become both safe and threatening. Safe, because you're not chasing. Threatening because you might move on. This is also why they may keep you as a soft option in their mind without committing. Not because they're evil, but because they are comfort, seeking while fear-driven. They want to know you're still there. They want the reassurance of access. They want the emotional safety of your presence in the background. But they don't want the intensity of being fully responsible for your feelings. So they orbit. They keep a thread of attention alive, so you remain psychologically present. They may show up around your milestones. When you post a win, they react. When you disappear, they check. When you seem happy, they feel the sting of losing you. This can trigger them to send a casual message just to see if you're still reachable. And if you respond warmly, their nervous system calms. They got the reassurance they needed. Then the fear returns, and they pull back again. This is why you must not confuse orbiting with readiness. Orbiting means interest. It doesn't always mean emotional maturity. An avoidant can orbit you because they like you, but also because you regulate them. Your presence calms their nervous system. Your attention reassures their ego. Your warmth gives them comfort. And if they can get those benefits without the responsibilities of a relationship, the orbit can continue for a long time. So how do you read orbiting accurately? You look at the pattern, not the moment. 1 like means nothing. 10 signals over time means something. You look at consistency. You look at timing. Do they show up when you pull away? Do they disappear when you invite closeness? Do they keep contact vague and low effort? Do they avoid direct plans but keep the thread alive? That's orbiting. And here's what you do if you want clarity without chasing. You don't confront orbiting with emotional pressure. You confront it with calm structure. You can respond kindly, but you move it toward something real. If they message, you can say, "Good to hear from you. If you want to catch up, when are you free?" That's not chasing, that's clarity. It forces a choice. Either they step into real interaction, or they retreat back into hovering. Because orbiting thrives in ambiguity. It dies in clarity. If they're truly into you and capable of stepping up, they'll respond to clarity with action. They'll make a plan. They'll follow through. They'll become more direct over time. If they're orbiting for reassurance, they'll resist clarity. They'll stay vague. They'll disappear. They'll breadcrumb again later. And this is where your power matters. The avoidance orbit can pull you into a loop if you keep feeding it with instant access. You reply fast, you stay available, you offer emotional warmth, and they keep orbiting because it works. But if you hold a calm standard, kindness with boundaries, you stop becoming a free source of reassurance. So yes, orbiting is a big sign they're secretly into you. It means you're on their mind. It means they don't want to lose you. It means their nervous system is drawn toward you. But the real question is not, are they into me? The real question is, are they willing to show up in a way that's safe for me? Because interest without consistency is not a relationship. It's a pattern. And your job is to make sure you don't become trapped in someone's orbit when you deserve to be chosen directly. When an avoidant is secretly into you, they often create excuses to contact you: small, casual, low risk reasons that let them reach for connection without admitting they want connection. They won't come out and say, "I like you," because that would require vulnerability. It would require them to risk rejection, to risk looking needy, to risk being emotionally seen. So instead, they wrap their interest in something that looks harmless. A question. A meme. A random observation. Just checking. It's contact disguised as coincidence. And ladies and gentlemen, this pattern is powerful because it reveals the tug of war inside them: desire pulling them closer, fear pulling them back. Avoidants often want the comfort of connection without the exposure of attachment. So they send messages that are light enough to feel safe and deniable. If you respond warmly, they get reassurance and relief. If you don't respond, they can protect their ego by pretending it wasn't important. That's why the messages can feel oddly pointless on the surface. What's that song called? Did you ever watch that movie? This reminded me of you. How's work? Hey stranger, it's not about the question, it's about the bridge. They're building a small bridge they can cross without committing to the full journey. Because a direct invitation, "I want to see you. I miss you. I'm thinking about you," feels like standing in the open. It feels like giving you power. It feels like surrender. But a casual excuse feels controlled. It feels safe. It lets them test the waters. Are you still receptive? Are you still warm? Are you still available? Are you still safe to approach? This is also why avoidants often reach out when they have an emotional trigger. Stress at work. Loneliness at night. A fight with family. A bad day. A moment where their defenses get tired. Your presence, even through a simple text exchange, regulates them. It calms their nervous system. So they reach for you the way someone reaches for a familiar blanket, not always consciously, but instinctively. And then, when their nervous system calms, the fear returns. I'm getting close again. That's when they might disappear after initiating. That's when you get the classic pattern. They start the conversation, you reply, and then silence. From your side it feels rude. From their side it's often panic. They got what they needed, relief, and now they're scared of what comes next. But here's the key point. Excuses to contact you are a strong indicator of interest, because avoidants don't reach out without a reason, unless the pull is real. If they are neutral about you, they won't bother. If they're not thinking about you, they won't randomly message you. Their brain is built to avoid unnecessary emotional entanglement. So when they keep creating reasons, It means you're in their mental space, and they're trying to keep a thread alive. However, this is also where people get trapped, because low-risk contact can turn into a long-term breadcrumb dynamic if you don't respond with structure. You might start giving them full emotional access every time they poke the connection. You respond quickly, warmly, deeply, and they take the comfort. But they never move toward clarity. They never define the relationship. They never become consistent. They just keep returning for small doses of your energy. So the healthiest move is to meet their contact with calm clarity. Not coldness. Not games. Calm clarity. If they send a meme, laugh and respond, but don't overinvest. If they ask a random question, answer, but don't chase a deeper conversation. If they say, just checking, you can say, good to hear from you. If you want to catch up properly, when are you free? That one line does something important. It turns excuse contact into real contact. It forces them to either step forward or reveal that they only wanted a quick hit of reassurance, because avoidants use excuses as tests, and you should use clarity as a filter. If they're genuinely into you and capable of showing up, they will gradually become more direct. They'll move from random messages to actual plans. They'll follow through. They'll keep communication more consistent. They'll tolerate a little vulnerability, because the connection matters. If they're only using you as nervous system relief, they'll avoid anything that requires consistency. They'll keep it casual. They'll keep it vague. They'll pop in and out. They'll disappear when you invite something real. And this is why your response matters more than their excuse. Their excuse shows interest. Your response determines whether interest becomes a relationship or becomes a loop. Also watch the timing. Excuse contact often spikes when they sense you slipping away. When you stop initiating, they suddenly remember you. When you become busier, they suddenly check in. When you post something that suggests you're moving on, they suddenly react. That's not necessarily manipulation, but it is attachment alarm. Your distance triggers their fear of loss, and their fear of loss triggers contact. But fear-based contact is not the same as secure commitment. It's a signal, not a promise. So yes, when an avoidant keeps finding little reasons to reach out, it's one of the clearest signs they're secretly into you. Because they're trying to stay connected without being exposed. They're trying to touch your energy without admitting they want you. And your job is to stay warm but grounded, kind but not endlessly available. So their excuses either evolve into real effort or fade away when they can't get reassurance for free. When an avoidant is secretly into you, one of the most revealing patterns is the burst and retreat cycle. They open up in a small, unexpected wave of vulnerability, then they pull back as if it never happened. And to you, it can feel like emotional whiplash. One day they're sharing something real, talking deeper, being affectionate, asking questions, acting like they finally trust you. Then suddenly, they go quiet. They become dry. They take longer to reply. They act like they need space. The mistake is thinking the warmth was fake. Often it wasn't. The warmth was real. The retreat is fear. Avoidants don't fear connection the way people think. They often crave it. What they fear is what connection demands: being emotionally seen, being emotionally responsible, being close enough that their flaws can be felt, not just understood. So when they share something vulnerable, it's like stepping out from behind armor. It feels good in the moment because your presence is safe. But afterward, their nervous system catches up and screams. You exposed yourself. You gave them access. Now you can be hurt. That's when the retreat begins. This pattern is not about you doing something wrong. It's about their internal alarm system. Vulnerability is intimacy. Intimacy is proximity. Proximity triggers old fears: fear of being judged, fear of being controlled, fear of being needed, fear of failing, fear of losing freedom, fear of being abandoned after they finally open up. Even when you respond gently, even when you're supportive, their system can still panic because the panic isn't rational. It's stored in their body from earlier experiences where closeness felt unsafe. So you'll see them open up in controlled doses. A little truth, then a pullback. A little softness, then a shutdown. A little affection, then a cold spell. They're trying to connect while still managing the fear. It's like they're dipping a toe into intimacy and then jerking it back out because the water feels too deep. Watch how it shows up. They might tell you something personal about family, childhood insecurities, past heartbreak. They might share a fear or a dream. They might admit they miss you or that you matter to them. They might initiate a deeper conversation late at night when their defenses are lower. They might become unusually affectionate in person. And you, because you're human, will feel hope. You'll think, this is it. They're finally opening up. Then the next day, they're distant. That distance can look like indifference, but it's often self-protection. Their mind starts overthinking the moment. Did I reveal too much? Do they expect more now? What if they use this against me? What if I can't keep showing up like that? What if I'm not enough? And instead of calming themselves by leaning into connection, they calm themselves by creating space. Distance is their sedative. This is why the avoidant can appear confident and unbothered while still being deeply affected. Retreat is not lack of feeling. Retreat is fear management. Now, there are two common mistakes people make at this stage. The first mistake is chasing the retreat. You notice they pulled back, so you try to pull them forward. You send more messages. You ask, are you okay? You try to bring back the closeness. You over-explain that you're safe and you're not judging them. But all of that, even with good intentions, adds pressure. It communicates urgency, and urgency triggers more retreat. The second mistake is punishing the retreat. You get cold back. You disappear to teach a lesson. You act offended. You withdraw affection dramatically. That can escalate the avoidant's fear that closeness leads to conflict and punishment, so they retreat even harder. The power move is neither chasing nor punishing. The power move is steady warmth with structure. When they open up, you respond warmly and simply. You don't interrogate. You don't demand more. You validate, then you let it breathe. You show them that vulnerability doesn't create a storm. It creates calm. And when they pull back, you don't panic, you don't chase. You keep your center. If they go quiet, you don't flood them with reassurance. You give them space, but you keep your standards. You can say something clean like, no worries. I'm here. Let me know when you're free to talk. Then you return to your life. Why is this so powerful? Because it teaches their nervous system a new association. Closeness doesn't equal pressure. Vulnerability doesn't equal punishment. Opening up doesn't equal being swallowed. Over time, if they're capable of growth, your steadiness helps them build tolerance. They learn they can share something real and still be safe. They learn they don't have to disappear to regulate. They learn they can come close without losing control. That's the healthy evolution of the burst and retreat. But if they are not willing to grow, this pattern becomes a cycle that drains you. You'll keep getting glimpses of intimacy, followed by withdrawals. You'll keep living on hope. And hope without consistency becomes addiction. So the burst and retreat is a major sign they're secretly into you. Because avoidants don't risk vulnerability with someone they don't care about. They don't open the door at all unless the pull is real. But the retreat tells you their fear is still active. And your job is to respond in a way that doesn't feed fear, doesn't feed chaos, and doesn't abandon yourself. Because ultimately, the goal isn't just to prove they're into you. The goal is to see whether their interest can become stable behavior. Vulnerability is a sign of feeling. Consistency is a sign of readiness. When an avoidant is secretly into you, their jealousy doesn't usually look like dramatic possessiveness or emotional confession. It shows up in subtle, sideways ways, because they don't want to admit they care that much. Jealousy is a vulnerable emotion. It reveals attachment. It reveals fear of loss. And avoidants don't like feeling anything that makes them look dependent. So instead of saying, "I'm jealous," they do what they always do, they disguise it. This is why avoidant jealousy often appears as curiosity with an edge. They'll ask questions that sound casual, but the timing and tone give it away. "Who were you with? You seem busy lately. So you're going out a lot now." That person in your comments, who's that? They're trying to gather information without revealing the real motive behind it. They want reassurance, but they don't want to ask for reassurance. They want closeness, but they don't want to look like they need it. So they fish. Sometimes the jealousy shows up as teasing, a little sarcasm, a little, "Oh wow, look at you," a little, "Someone's popular." Teasing is a safe way to express insecurity without confessing it. If you react, they get information. If you don't react, they can pretend they were joking. Again, it's low-risk emotional testing. Other times, jealousy shows up as sudden reappearance when you seem to be moving on. You post a photo looking happy, and suddenly they like it fast. You go quiet for a while, and suddenly they check in. You start thriving, and they start orbiting more. That's jealousy too, but it's jealousy mixed with loss anxiety. Your independence triggers something in them. I might actually lose access to this person. And when avoidants feel the threat of losing you, their interest becomes more visible. But here's the most important detail. Avoidant jealousy is often more about control than love. Not control in a villain way, but in a nervous system way. They feel safe when they believe they can access you if they choose. They feel calm when they believe you're still emotionally available in the background. When you start pulling your attention away, that safety breaks. They can't predict you anymore. They can't manage the connection anymore. And that uncertainty triggers jealousy. So you might notice they become more attentive when you're less available, but less attentive when you're fully open. That's the push-pull. Your openness triggers their fear of closeness. Your distance triggers their fear of loss. Jealousy lives in the fear of loss side. They might also compare themselves silently. Avoidants often have hidden insecurity. They may look confident, but underneath, they fear not being enough emotionally. So when you have options, when you get attention, when you look happy without them, it activates that insecurity. They start wondering, what if they meet someone who is easier? What if they meet someone who doesn't need me to communicate? What if they meet someone secure? And that fear can trigger jealousy without them even realizing it. Now, you must be careful here, because avoidant jealousy can tempt you to play games. You might think, if I make them jealous, they'll care more. And yes, jealousy can create pursuit temporarily. But jealousy is not the same as commitment. Jealousy can make them chase in panic, then disappear once they feel safe again. If you build connection through jealousy, you create an unstable bond. So how do you respond to avoidant jealousy in a way that helps you see the truth? You don't argue. You don't over-explain. You don't try to prove innocence. You stay calm and grounded. If they fish, you answer lightly and confidently. You don't become defensive. Because defensiveness gives them power and signals they can control your emotional state. Calm signals stability. For example, if they ask, "Who were you with?" you can say "friends," with a calm tone. If they say, "You're busy lately?" you can say, "Yeah, I've been focused on my life." You don't overshare to soothe them, and you don't hide to protect them. You simply stay centered. Then, if their jealousy becomes repeated testing, you move to clarity. You can say one clean line that turns jealousy into a real conversation. If you want to be in my life, I'm open to building something consistent. If not, I'm not available for mixed signals. That's how you stop being pulled into games and start requiring direction. Because here's the truth: avoidant jealousy is one of the strongest signs they're into you. But it's also a sign they feel threatened by your independence. And the only thing that turns jealousy into a healthy bond is emotional maturity, being able to admit feelings, communicate needs, and show up consistently. If they're capable of growth, jealousy becomes a doorway. They become more direct. They claim you with consistency, not control. They stop testing and start choosing. If they're not capable of growth, jealousy becomes a trap. They'll keep wanting access without responsibility. They'll keep reacting when you pull away and withdrawing when you come close. So yes, subtle jealousy is a pattern that gives it away. But your job isn't to feed it. Your job is to stay steady, keep your standards, and watch whether their jealousy turns into real effort or stays as secret insecurity expressed through half moves. When an avoidant is secretly into you, they often show care through actions instead of emotional words. And this is one of the most reliable patterns, because it matches how avoidants protect themselves. Words feel exposed, words create a record. Words make things real, saying, "I miss you," or "I'm into you." Feels like handing someone a key to your chest. For an avoidant, that kind of emotional admission can trigger fear and shame at the same time. So instead of saying it, they do it, quietly, practically, indirectly. They try to express attachment in a way that still lets them keep control. This is why an avoidant who's into you may not be verbally romantic, but they'll show up in specific, consistent moments. They'll fix something, help you with a problem, remember a small detail you mentioned weeks ago, bring you something you like without you asking, offer advice, offer solutions, offer support, but in a way that feels useful, rather than emotional. They'll show you they care by being helpful, because helpfulness feels safer than vulnerability. And ladies and gentlemen, this is where many people misread the signal. They think they're not emotional, so they must not care. But with avoidance, emotional expression isn't always the language. Utility is. It's their way of saying, "You matter," without saying, "You matter." You'll see it in the way they pay attention to your life, even if they act casual. They might not ask deep questions, but they remember your schedule. They remember the thing you were nervous about. They remember your favorite snack. They remember the song you like. They remember what stresses you out. That memory is not random. Avoidants don't store details about people they don't care about. Their attention is selective. So when they remember your little things, it's a quiet confession. Sometimes their care shows up as protection. They might not say they're worried, but they'll check that you got home. They might not say they miss you, but they'll reach out when they sense you're down. They might not say they're proud, but they'll notice your wins. They might not say, "I love you," but they'll be present in practical ways when it counts. And here's the deeper reason. Actions feel like control. Words feel like surrender. An avoidant can do an action and still keep emotional distance. They can help you and still avoid exposing their inner world. They can show up and still tell themselves, "I'm just being nice." They can keep the story safe. But if they speak their feelings, they can't hide behind the story anymore. Speaking feelings makes them accountable to those feelings. Speaking feelings makes you expect consistency. Speaking feelings risks rejection. So they choose the channel that feels safer behavior. This also explains why avoidant care can be inconsistent. Because action-based care often appears in moments where they feel safe, but disappears when intimacy gets too intense. They may show up to help you move, but go cold when you ask, "What are we?" They may be consistent with favors, but inconsistent with communication. They may support you physically, but struggle to support you emotionally. That doesn't mean they're not into you. It means their comfort zone is practical closeness, not emotional exposure. So how do you tell the difference between "they're kind" and "they're secretly into you"? You look at the pattern and priority. Do they show care when it costs them something? Time, effort, energy. Do they show up when it's inconvenient? Do they remember details and act on them without being prompted? Do they come through when you genuinely need support? People can be polite and still not invested, but consistent effort is investment. Also look at exclusivity. Do they show this level of care to everyone, or specifically to you? Avoidants can be socially polite, but when they're into someone, their actions become targeted. They'll be more available for you than they are for most people. They'll offer you their competence, their help, their presence. That's their version of intimacy. Now, here's the trap: if you only accept action-based care, you might unintentionally allow emotional avoidance to continue. Because yes, actions matter, but long-term love requires emotional presence too. You don't want a partner who can fix your problems, but cannot hold your feelings. So the goal is not to shame them for being action-oriented. The goal is to gently translate action into emotional growth. You can validate their effort while still asking for emotional clarity. Something like, "I really appreciate how you show up for me. It means a lot. And I also value communication and consistency. I'd love for us to talk about where this is going." That approach honors their style without letting them hide behind it. Because when an avoidant is truly into you and capable of growth, their actions will eventually become more direct. They will start pairing effort with communication. They will become more consistent. They will take emotional risks in small steps. They will not just help you, they will also include you. They will not just show up, they will also claim the connection in a clearer way. But if they're not ready, you'll see the limit. They'll keep offering actions without accountability. They'll keep doing favors while avoiding definition. They'll keep showing care in ways that benefit them, because actions feel safe, while refusing the emotional responsibility that makes a relationship secure. So yes, action-based care is one of the biggest signs an avoidant is secretly into you. Their body will move toward you even when their mouth won't. Their effort will reveal attachment, even when their words stay guarded. But your power is knowing these actions are a signal of interest, not a substitute for emotional maturity. The right person will eventually do both, show up in actions and show up in truth. When an avoidant is secretly into you, the sixth pattern is this: they start letting you into their world in small, careful ways. Not a big announcement. Not a dramatic, "meet my family," overnight. It's subtle integration. They begin to include you quietly, practically, almost accidentally, because even though they fear closeness, their attachment is growing. And inclusion is the avoidant's most honest confession, because it costs them the one thing they protect most: autonomy. Avoidants can flirt with you for weeks and still keep you at arm's length emotionally. They can enjoy chemistry without letting you touch their real life. But when they're truly into you, something shifts. They start sharing routines, schedules, spaces, and plans. They tell you what they're doing without you asking. They invite you into the normal parts of their day, not just the fun parts, because fun is easy. Real life inclusion is intimacy. You'll notice it first in tiny moments. They start mentioning you to others in casual ways. They reference something you said around their friends. They ask what you think before making a decision. They send you photos of something ordinary, food, a place they're at, a random moment, because they want you present in their internal world. That's not meaningless. That's an avoidant nervous system testing closeness in a way that still feels safe. They're saying, without saying it, "You're becoming part of my mind." Then you'll see it in time. They make time for you more deliberately. Avoidants don't always show love with emotional words, but they do show love with protected resources: their time, their energy, their routines. If they're truly into you, they stop treating you like an optional vibe and start treating you like someone they plan around. They'll pick a day. They'll confirm. They'll follow through. They may still need space sometimes, but they will begin to create reliability, because reliability reduces the fear of losing you. You'll also see it in access. They let you see parts of them that aren't polished. They let you see them tired, stressed, low energy, not performing. That's a big deal. Avoidants often manage relationships by controlling perception. If they can keep things light and charming, they can avoid being fully known. But when they're into you, they start allowing a more real version of themselves to exist with you. That means they're trusting you not to punish their humanity. And you'll see it in future language. Avoidants don't always say, "I want a future with you," directly, but they start referencing the future with you in it. Next time we should go there sometime. I'll show you. We can do that later. It's not a marriage proposal. It's the nervous system quietly expanding the idea of "oops." For an avoidant, future language is risky because it implies continuity. Continuity implies responsibility. So when it starts happening naturally, it's often a sign that their attachment is strengthening. Another giveaway is that they begin sharing their inner map, what they like, what they hate, what stresses them, what they need to feel okay, not as a deep emotional confession, but as practical self-disclosure. I get overwhelmed when I need a day to reset sometimes. I don't like big crowds. Work has been heavy. That might look ordinary, but for an avoidant, it's a form of closeness because it gives you information that could affect the relationship. They're letting you know how to stay near them without triggering their defenses. That's not something they do with people they don't care about. And pay attention to what they do with conflict. If they're secretly into you, they don't always handle conflict perfectly, but they start coming back. They start repairing more than they used to. Even if it's awkward, even if it's delayed, they'll circle back with a sorry, or a check-in, or a small attempt to reconnect. Avoidants who don't care will vanish and feel justified. Avoidants who care will vanish and feel unsettled. That unsettled feeling pulls them back toward repair, because losing you starts to feel more painful than the discomfort of vulnerability. Now, here's the part that protects you. Inclusion is a strong sign, but it doesn't mean you abandon standards. A lot of people see these small signs and immediately over-invest. They start rushing intimacy, pushing labels, escalating demands. That can trigger the avoidant's fear and cause them to retreat. The healthiest response is to stay steady and let inclusion grow at a pace that builds safety. If they invite you into their world, meet it with warmth, not pressure. If they share their routine, appreciate it without turning it into an interrogation. If they make a plan, show up calmly and consistently, because the avoidant's deepest test is not, "Will you love me?" It's, "Will closeness with you become chaos?" When you stay grounded, you teach their nervous system that intimacy can be stable, but also keep your clarity. If they include you sometimes, and then keep you hidden when it matters, notice that. If they sprinkle access but refuse consistency, notice that. Because the goal isn't to collect signs that they're into you. The goal is to see whether their interest is becoming safe behavior. When an avoidant is truly into you, they don't just orbit. They don't just message randomly. They don't just get jealous silently. They begin to make room. Room in their time. Room in their mind. Room in their life. And for an avoidant, making room is one of the most intimate acts they can offer, because it means you're no longer outside the walls. You're starting to be let in.